The gymnasium stretched across 3 acres of polished titanium flooring, its ceiling so high that clouds formed near the ventilation shafts. Zara Bennett stood at the entrance, her duffel bag slung over one shoulder, trying not to look as terrified as she felt. Around her, alien cadets from a dozen different species warmed up for physical training, their movements fluid and confident. She was the only human at Garrison Prime Military Academy, the only one in a student body of 8,000. "Look what crawled out of the Deathworld trash heap," a voice sneered from behind her. Zara turned to face Krill, a Vaxorian whose purple exoskeleton gleamed under the harsh gymnasium lights. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, his forearms crossed in a gesture of pure contempt, his mandibles clicked with amusement. "I heard your species needs machines just to leave your own planet," Krill continued, his voice dripping with mockery. "Pathetic." Several nearby cadets laughed. A Zenthari female with luminescent skin giggled behind her webbed hand. 2 Kronar males, their scales rippling with suppressed mirth, nudged each other and pointed. Zara felt heat rising in her cheeks, but she kept her expression neutral. She had learned that lesson in her first week here. Show weakness, and they would tear you apart. Not physically, the Academy had strict rules against that, but emotionally. Psychologically, that was fair game. "At least my planet has an atmosphere you can breathe without filters," Zara replied calmly, dropping her bag near a bench. Krill's eyes narrowed. Big words from someone who barely passed the entrance fitness assessment. Tell me, Deathworlder, did they lower the standards just to let your fragile species in?" Before Zara could respond, a sharp whistle cut through the gymnasium. Instructor Veloth, a grizzled Korthan veteran with cybernetic enhancements covering half his body, strode to the center of the floor. His metallic eye swept across the assembled students, and conversation died instantly. "Cadets, attention!" His voice boomed without need for amplification. "Today, we focus on core strength assessment. You will each attempt to lift the graviton weight. The current Academy record stands at 900 kilograms, held by Cadet Thross of the Kronar delegation." A massive reptilian cadet stepped forward and bowed slightly, accepting scattered applause from his peers. Veloth continued, his good eye gleaming with what might have been amusement. "The minimum passing grade is 300 kilograms. Anyone who cannot meet this standard will be assigned remedial training. Begin." The gymnasium erupted into controlled chaos as cadets lined up at various testing stations. Zara moved toward the graviton weight platform, her heart hammering against her ribs. 300 kilograms. That was over 600 pounds. In Earth measurements, she had trained for this, spent months in the high-gravity sections of the Academy, but doubt gnawed at her confidence. "Placing bets on how badly the human fails," someone whispered loudly enough for her to hear. "I give her 30 seconds before she gives up," another voice responded. "Generous, I say she won't even try." Zara's jaw tightened. She stepped onto the platform and looked down at the graviton weight. It resembled a sleek metal bar with glowing blue cores at each end, its surface covered in alien script that displayed the current weight setting. "Cadet Bennett," Veloth appeared beside her, his expression unreadable. "Are you prepared?" "Yes, sir," Zara said, her voice steadier than she felt. "The weight is calibrated to standard galactic gravity," he explained, though she already knew this. "You may adjust your stance as needed. Lift when ready." Zara crouched down, wrapping her fingers around the cold metal bar. She could feel dozens of eyes on her back, could hear the barely suppressed snickering from the crowd. Let them laugh, let them think she was weak. She took a deep breath, braced her legs, and pulled. Nothing happened. The weight remained motionless, as if it had been welded to the floor. Zara's muscles screamed in protest, her vision swimming slightly from the effort. She released the bar and stepped back, her face burning with humiliation. The laughter was immediate and merciless. "I told you she could not do it." Krill's voice rose above the others. "Humans are soft, weak. They should stick to pushing papers and leaving real military work to actual warriors." Zara wanted to scream, wanted to rage at them. wanted to explain that Earth gravity was stronger than standard galactic gravity, that her planet had made her bones denser, her muscles more efficient, that she was stronger than they realized. But the words died in her throat, because right now, in this moment, none of that mattered. She had failed. Silence! Veloth's command cut through the mockery like a blade. The gymnasium fell quiet once more. Cadet Bennett, you have 2 more attempts. Rest for 5 minutes, then try again. Zara nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She moved away from the platform, finding a quiet corner where she could regroup. Her hands were shaking, whether from exertion or anger, she could not tell. Probably both. Do not listen to them, a soft voice said beside her. Zara looked up to find Lissa, a Zenthari female who shared her xenobiology class. Unlike the others, Lissa had always been polite, if distant. They mock what they do not understand, Lissa continued, her luminescent skin pulsing with gentle colors. Your species is new to the galactic community. Give them time. Time, Zara repeated bitterly. How much time? How many failures do I have to endure before they see me as something other than a joke? Lissa's expression was sympathetic, but she offered no answer. Because there was no answer. Not one that would help right now. The 5 minutes crawled by like hours. Zara watched as other cadets easily lifted the required weight, some even pushing beyond the minimum standard. Thros, the record holder, approached the platform and adjusted the graviton cores to maximum. The display flickered and settled on 900 kilograms. He lifted it with a roar that shook the gymnasium, holding the weight above his head for a full 10 seconds before setting it down. The crowd erupted in cheers. Show off, Zara muttered under her breath. Cadet Bennett! Second attempt, Veloth called. Zara pushed herself to her feet and walked back to the platform. The weight had been reset to 300 kilograms. She stared at it, her mind racing. What was she doing wrong? The training had prepared her body, but maybe her approach was flawed. Humans lifted differently than other species. Their leverage points were unique. Their center of gravity was lower. She crouched down again, but this time she adjusted her stance, widening her feet, dropping her hips lower. She gripped the bar and visualized the movement. Imagined the weight rising, pictured success instead of failure. Deep breath in, hold, release, pull. The bar moved, just a fraction of an inch, but it moved. Zara felt a surge of hope. She reset her grip, adjusted her breathing, and tried again. This time, the weight lifted a full 6 inches off the ground before her grip failed and it crashed back down. Progress. Small, insignificant progress, but progress nonetheless. The laughter was less enthusiastic this time. A few cadets looked almost impressed. Krill's expression had shifted from amusement to something resembling annoyance. One more attempt, cadet, Veloth said quietly. Zara's entire body ached. Her muscles felt like they had been set on fire. But she was not done. Not yet. She stepped away from the platform and began pacing, shaking out her arms, rolling her shoulders. She had one more chance, one more opportunity to prove she belonged here. As she paced, her eyes fell on something she had not noticed before. Near the far wall of the gymnasium, partially obscured by equipment, sat another graviton weight. This one was different, larger. The cores glowed a deep crimson instead of blue, and the metal had a darker, almost organic appearance. Dust covered its surface, suggesting it had not been moved in a very long time. Instructor Veloth, Zara called out, pointing at the strange weight. What is that? The gymnasium went silent. Every head turned to look. Veloth's expression changed, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on the object. That, he said slowly, is the Titan's burden, an ancient testing device from the First Galactic War. It has been in this gymnasium for over 2 centuries. Why is it not used anymore? Zara asked, curiosity overriding her exhaustion. Veloth's mandibles twitched in what might have been a smile. Because no one can lift it. The weight is locked at 1,500 kilograms and the graviton field is unstable. It is considered unliftable, a relic, a reminder of the warriors who came before us and the standards we can no longer meet. 1,500 kilograms, over 3,000 pounds. The number was absurd, impossible. And yet, Zara found herself walking toward it, drawn by something she could not explain. She heard murmurs behind her, heard Krill's harsh laughter start up again. "Oh, this is perfect," the Vaxorian crowed. "The human cannot lift the standard weight, so now she wants to try the impossible one. Please, by all means, humiliate yourself further." Zara ignored him. She stood before the Titan's burden, studying its design. The bar was thicker than the standard weight, its surface etched with symbols she could not read. The crimson cores pulsed with an internal rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. She reached out and touched it. The moment her fingers made contact, something changed. The cores flared brighter, and she felt a vibration travel up her arm, through her shoulder, into her chest. It was not unpleasant. If anything, it felt right, natural, like the weight was recognizing something in her. "Cadet Bennett, step away from that device." Veloth's voice carried a note of concern she had not heard before. "It is not safe." But Zara was not listening anymore. She wrapped both hands around the bar and dropped into a lifting stance. Every eye in the gymnasium was on her now. The mockery had stopped. Even Krill had fallen silent. This was insane. This was impossible. This was going to end in complete disaster. Zara smiled. "Let us see what happens," she whispered, and then she pulled. The first thing Zara noticed was the sound, a deep, resonant hum that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The crimson cores of the Titan's burden flared brilliant red, casting dancing shadows across the gymnasium floor. The weight itself felt alive in her hands, warm and pulsing with energy that matched the rhythm of her own heartbeat. The second thing she noticed was that it was moving. Not much, maybe half an inch, but it was definitely, undeniably, moving upward. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd of cadets. Someone dropped a water container, and the clatter echoed in the sudden silence. Zara's arms trembled with the effort, every muscle in her body screaming for her to stop, to let go, to accept defeat. But something deeper, something primal, refused to listen. Earth gravity was 1.0. Standard galactic gravity was 0.78. She had spent her entire life fighting against a force that these aliens could barely comprehend. Her bones had grown dense under pressure that would crush most species. Her muscles had been forged in the crucible of a death world where everything, from the weather to the wildlife, was designed to kill. And now they were laughing at her strength. The weight rose another inch, then another. "Impossible," Krill breathed, his forearms hanging limp at his sides. "That is impossible." Zara's legs burned. Her back felt like it might snap in half. Sweat poured down her face, stinging her eyes, making her grip slippery on the ancient metal bar. But she kept pulling, kept fighting. The weight climbed higher, rising past her knees, approaching her waist. Instructor Veloth moved closer, his cybernetic eye recording every second. His expression had shifted from concern to something approaching awe. "Cadet Bennett, if you cannot hold it, drop it immediately. Do not injure yourself for pride." Pride? The word almost made Zara laugh. This was not about pride. This was about proving something she had known her entire life but could never articulate. That being from a death world did not make you weak. It made you adaptable, resilient, strong in ways that comfort and ease could never produce. The weight reached her waist. Her vision swam, black spots dancing at the edges. Every instinct screamed at her to stop. But she had come too far, endured too much mockery, survived too many sideways glances and dismissive comments. This moment, right here, was her answer to every doubt, every insult, every time someone had looked at her and seen weakness instead of potential. She roared, not a scream, not a grunt, but a full-throated roar of defiance that echoed through the massive gymnasium. The sound was raw, primal, and utterly human. And with that roar came a final surge of strength she did not know she possessed. The Titan's burden rose above her head. Time seemed to stop. The crimson cores blazed like dying stars, their light painting the entire gymnasium in shades of red and orange. Zara stood there, arms locked, legs planted, holding 1,500 kilograms of ancient alien metal above her head like it was her personal banner of war. Then, slowly, carefully, she lowered it back to the ground. The moment the weight touched the floor, the cores dimmed, returning to their original dull glow. The hum faded, and Zara collapsed to her knees, gasping for air, her entire body shaking with exhaustion. The gymnasium remained silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then it exploded with noise. Cadets surged forward, shouting questions, reaching out to touch her shoulders, her arms, as if physical contact might somehow explain what they had just witnessed. Lissa appeared at her side, her luminescent skin pulsing with excited colors. Even Thros, the current record holder, pushed through the crowd to stare at the Titan's burden with something resembling reverence. "How?" The reptilian cadet's voice was thick with disbelief. "I have trained my entire life. My species is renowned for physical strength. How did a human just lift something that no one has moved in 200 years? Zara tried to answer, but could not find the breath. Her lungs burned. Her arms felt like wet noodles. But she was smiling. Actually, genuinely smiling, for the first time since arriving at this academy. Instructor Veloth's voice cut through the chaos like a blade through smoke. "Back. Give her space to breathe." The crowd reluctantly retreated, though every eye remained fixed on Zara. The instructor crouched beside her, his cybernetic eye whirring as it scanned her vital signs. "That was the most reckless, foolish, and frankly idiotic thing I've seen in 30 years of teaching." Zara's smile faltered. Here it came. The reprimand. The punishment for not following orders. But Veloth was grinning. Actually grinning. His mechanical parts clicking with what might have been laughter. It was also the most impressive display of raw determination I've ever witnessed. "Well done, cadet. Well done, indeed." He stood and raised his voice to address the entire gymnasium. "Let this be a lesson to all of you. Strength comes in many forms. What Cadet Bennett lacks in size or apparent power, she compensates for with sheer will. The Titan's burden has not been lifted since the war hero Commander Draxis moved it during the siege of Talaron. Today, a first-year human cadet added her name to that very short list." The applause started slowly, but built quickly, washing over Zara like a wave. Not the mocking laughter from before, but genuine respect. It was almost too much to process. Almost. Krill pushed through the crowd, his purple exoskeleton somehow looking less imposing than before. His mandibles clicked nervously, and his forearms remained crossed in a defensive posture. That was a fluke, luck, nothing more. Zara finally caught her breath enough to stand. Her legs wobbled, but she managed to remain upright. She turned to face the Vaxorian, meeting his eyes without flinching. "You're right, it was luck. Lucky that I grew up on a planet with gravity that would crush your exoskeleton like an eggshell. Lucky that my ancestors had to fight for survival every single day against predators that would consider your species a light snack. Lucky that when humans decided to reach for the stars, we had to be stronger, smarter, and more adaptable than any challenge the universe could throw at us." She stepped closer, ignoring the trembling in her muscles. "So yes, Krill, I got very, very lucky. And that luck has a name. It is called Earth." The Vaxorian opened his mandibles to respond, but found no words. He looked around, seeking support from his peers, but found only cadets watching the exchange with newfound interest. Some even nodded in agreement. After a long, uncomfortable moment, Krill turned and stalked away, his dignity in tatters. Zara wanted to collapse again, wanted to sleep for a week, but she forced herself to remain standing as cadets approached with questions and congratulations. Lissa stayed close, running interference when the attention became too overwhelming. That was incredible, the Zenthari female said quietly. I have never seen anything like it. The way the cores responded to you, it was as if they recognized something, as if they had been waiting. Waiting for what? Zara asked, finally allowing herself to lean against the nearby equipment rack. Lissa's luminescent skin flickered with uncertain patterns. I do not know, but the Titan's burden was created during the First Galactic War by the progenitors, the species that founded the original coalition. They were obsessed with finding warriors who possessed not just physical strength, but what they called resilience of spirit, the ability to endure impossible odds and emerge stronger. Sounds dramatic. Zara managed a weak laugh. Perhaps, Lissa agreed, but the progenitors disappeared millennia ago, and their technology still works in ways we cannot fully understand. That weight should not have responded to you. According to every scan and analysis, it should remain inert. Yet you lifted it. You, a human from a species barely known to the greater galaxy. Before Zara could respond, Instructor Veloth approached with a data pad. Cadet Bennett, I need you to report to the medical center for a full physical evaluation. What you just did should not be possible given your species' baseline capabilities. I want to ensure you have not caused permanent damage to your musculoskeletal system. I feel fine, Zara lied. She felt like she had been hit by a transport shuttle. Veloth's cybernetic eye focused on her with uncomfortable intensity. That was not a request, Cadet. You have 1 hour to clean up and report. Dismissed. Zara nodded and retrieved her duffel bag, which suddenly felt like it weighed as much as the Titan's burden. As she headed toward the exit, she noticed cadets parting to let her through, not with mockery or disdain, but with something resembling respect. A few even nodded or offered brief words of congratulations. The walk back to her dormitory was a blur of aching muscles and racing thoughts. She had done it, actually done it, lifted the unliftable, proved that humans belonged at Garrison Prime. But as the adrenaline faded and exhaustion set in, doubt crept back. Was this a one-time thing? Would they expect her to perform similar feats regularly? Had she just painted an enormous target on her back? Her quarters were small but functional, standard issue for first-year cadets. She dropped her bag and collapsed onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. Her communication device beeped with incoming messages, dozens of them, but she ignored the sound. Right now, all she wanted was silence and rest. Sleep came quickly, heavy and dreamless. When she woke 3 hours later, the messages had multiplied. Most were from fellow cadets congratulating her or asking questions. A few were from instructors requesting interviews about her training methods. One was from the Academy Commandant herself, asking for a meeting first thing in the morning. But the message that caught her attention was from an unknown sender. No name, no identification code, just 4 words that made her blood run cold. Welcome home, Commander Draxis. Zara sat up, her exhaustion forgotten. Commander Draxis, the war hero Veloth had mentioned, the last person to lift the Titan's burden. But that was 200 years ago. Draxis would be long dead, even by galactic standards. Unless she opened her communication device and began searching the Academy database. Draxis, Commander, First Galactic War. The results appeared quickly, but most were restricted, marked with security clearances far above her access level. What little she could find painted a picture of a legendary warrior who had vanished mysteriously after the war ended, leaving behind only rumors and speculation, and apparently a connection to an ancient weight that no one could lift. Until today. Zara's hands shook as she closed the database. This was bigger than a simple gymnasium test, bigger than proving herself to skeptical aliens. Something was happening, something she did not understand, and she was right in the middle of it. Her communication device beeped again. Another message from the unknown sender. The progenitors chose well. We will be watching. Zara stared at the words until they blurred. Then she deleted both messages and stood up, moving to her window. Outside, Garrison Prime stretched across the horizon, its towers and training facilities gleaming under the light of 3 moons. Thousands of cadets from hundreds of species, all training to protect the Galactic Coalition. And somewhere among them, or perhaps watching from far away, something had taken notice of her. She smiled grimly at her reflection in the window. Let them watch. Let them test her. Let them throw whatever challenges they wanted at her. She was human. She was from Earth. And as she had just proven to an entire gymnasium full of doubters, humans did not break easily. The laughter and mockery were over. Whatever came next, she would face it the same way she faced the Titan's burden. Head on, with every ounce of strength she possessed, because that was what Deathworlders did. They survived. They adapted. They conquered the impossible. And they made it look good doing it. Subscribe and like to my channel for more HFY sci-fi stories.